The Laurie Dake Challenge serves as a platform for fostering collaboration between geoscience and engineering disciplines among university students. 13 teams initially competed by preparing assignments, with 10 advancing to develop field plans. And finally, 6 finalists presented their plans to a jury of the 85th EAGE Conference and Exhibitions in Oslo, Norway. And this year's competition utilizes a common data set provided by Equinor, ensuring a level playing field for all participants. And today we are going to talk to the winner of it and talk more about the result of these competitions. The first winner of the Laurie Dake Challenge 2024, joining me live from the capital of Norway, Faiz Hirsi over in Oslo. Hello, Faiz. Thank you very much for joining me in this conversation. First and foremost, allow us to extend the biggest congratulations to you and your colleagues. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rahmat. I'm very glad to be able to win these competitions. Thank you.
Faiz, on to my first question to you. Let us in on who you are first. Tell us more about you. You are an energy student currently studying in Oslo and entering the competitions and ended up winning it.
My name is Faiz. You can call me Faiz Hirsi. So I came to Norway 2 years ago to study about energy, reservoir, and earth sciences at the University of Stavanger. So Stavanger is actually a small city located at the south of Norway. Stavanger is actually the capital of oil and gas in Norway. And Norway is actually the leading city, the leading country in terms of petroleum and also the energy transitions for the future. And that's why I end up studying in Norway right now.
Right. So the Laurie Dake Challenge, as I mentioned earlier, this is quite a prestigious competition, and we are aware that it is about finding solutions to sustainable developments around the world, focused in Oslo at the moment, and you are taking part in it. What sort of proposal did you present to the panel of jury that made you into the shortlist of competitors?
Before answering your questions, I feel like it's better for me to explain a little bit about this competitions, Laurie Dake Challenge. So it is a competitions for students all over the world. It is organized by EAGE. EAGE is actually associations for geoscientists and engineers in Europe. And every year they have some annual conference and exhibitions every year, and they have several activities during this conference. And one of them is actually this Laurie Dake Challenge for students to compete with each other. So the goal for these competitions is to develop a sustainable development plan for oil and gas fields. And this year it was hosted by Equinor. So we need to work with one of their fields. It is located in Volve fields in the North Sea in Norway, basically. So the goal of these competitions was to develop a sustainable development plan, like already mentioned. We need to calculate the volume of hydrocarbons that we have for that fields, and we need to predict the emissions that will be produced for these fields as well. And the trickiest part is that we need to make sure that it's going to be net zero carbons in the production phase for this field. So to answer your questions, what did we propose for these competitions? Basically, we proposed that this field is actually a very good place for us to store CO2 emissions into the underground. So we showed some evidence to the judges that this place is very capable and suitable for storing CO2 emissions into the subsurface. So whatever emissions that will produced during the production phase in the oil and gas platform, we can inject it back into the subsurface, and it has a very good capacity, so it will be net zero for scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 for this field. I think that's the bigger picture of what I proposed during the competitions, Rahmat.
Right. Faiz, the net zero emission conversations has been the talk of the town in the past decade, if not in recent years. And in particular, for this competitions, it's about the hydrocarbon emission, as you said. Walk us through this might be technical, but the CO2 storage is also a very interesting concept of reducing the emissions. What's so potential about the locations that you've studied as opposed to other places, either in Norway or around the globe?
Yeah, so Norway is, like I already mentioned, it is a leading country in terms of energy transition, especially for CO2 storage. And these fields, volve fields, they have some particular formations, rock formations in the underground that is very sufficient for CO2 storage. One of the criteria for being a good CO2 storage is actually if you have a very good permeability, if you have a good porosity for the underground rock layers. And actually, you need to have a good seal capacity to be able to trap the CO2 emissions still into the underground. And this particular field, Volve field, is very beneficial for that. And I feel like CO2 storage will be the key factors for the energy transitions for the future, because it seems counterproductive if we are producing fossil fuels and also we can't achieve this energy transitions. But it seems that because we cannot abandon this fossil fuels, the question is how we can be able to still use this fossil fuel, but also we produce zero emissions. And the answer is actually, the biggest answer is actually CO2 storage.
Yeah.
So we can still use fossil fuels, and then whatever emissions there will be, we will be produced, we will re-inject it back into the subsurface.
Right.
From
The concept of carbon storage is in particular of a highly interest for oil producing countries around the globe. Now, Faiz, you are an indigent student, probably your colleagues too, taking part in the competitions, and you ended up winning. We cannot be more proud of you and your colleagues. Tell us some of the biggest challenges that you had to traverse and go through in order to win, Faiz.
Yeah, so this competition is pretty competitive because we need to compete with students all over the world. And I feel like one of the challenge that we have is how to communicate with each other within the team, because we come from a different backgrounds. My background is in geology. I'm a geologist. And my friends, their background is actually geophysicist and also reservoir engineer. If we learn different backgrounds, different disciplines, it means that we have a different terms, different knowledge, different language. That's what I can say. So the idea is how to connect this mindset, this knowledge, and these languages to be able to deliver this project as best as we can. The other challenging part is actually how to be creative, how to be open with all the options that we have to be able to produce zero emissions for the field. So we have several options, and we need to make sure that this is very suitable and beneficial for the field.
Right. Faiz, we are aware that in the competition this year for the Laurie Dake Challenge, there are 30 teams that are competing. One of them is your team from Indonesia, and that was alone in the first steps. So if you managed to get a sense of how the other teams performed as opposed to how you guys did, just to get a sense of how the general participants of the challenge answers to the questions of sustainable development.
Yeah, so I was honored to see their presentations during the competitions in Oslo, in Norway, basically. And because the scope of this project is very, very wide, so we can have a lot of options to be able to make it net zero carbons. I remembered one of the groups, they were focusing on the drilling activities, how these drilling activities can contribute to emission reduction for the fields. The other fields also talk a lot about electrifications, which is very important now, especially in Norway. If you know the biggest oil and gas fields in Norway, it's called Johan Sverdrup. If you look at their reports, they produce the very least amount of CO2 emissions. If I'm not mistaken, they produce around zero emissions. And that's because they're already electrified. So electrification is also very important. And our groups, we are focusing on the CO2 storage. So it just depends on the judges which of this option is more reliable and more suitable for this field.
Right. Faiz, just one final question to you. Learning from the outcome of the previously held COP28, one of the biggest climate summits by the United Nations in Dubai, and how we are now going above the thresholds, 1.5, it's scrolling 1.2. Just a small window there before we go above or beyond the thresholds. The younger generation has been one of the most vocal part of these conversations, and you represent one of them. What would you advise your peers and your fellow generations in order to address the issue of climate change?
Yeah, so my advice for the students in the world, I mean, in the world right now, energy transition is really happening right now. So we need to be prepared for ourselves. And for these competitions in particular, for example, if you are really interested with petroleum industry and also this energy transitions, CO2 storage, and please, you can apply for these competitions. It is free of charge, so you don't have to pay anything. So you don't have anything to lose. Because for me now, winning this competition is just a bonus. The most benefits that I got is actually to be able to work with a real data, with a real company. So for me as a students, we need to get exposed with the real data and real case as much as we can to be able to be more ready for our future careers. And also, fun fact, the last year winner of this competitions, Laurie Dake Challenge, is actually from University of Manchester. And I think three of them is actually Indonesian students. So we already dominating these competitions every year. For Indonesian students, don't be afraid. Don't underestimate your skills, your knowledge. We can compete with the students all over the world. And if you want to continue this tradition of winning these competitions, please apply for this competition. And I hope that in several years, maybe some of the university in Indonesia can win this competition as well, not just the Indonesian students.
Yeah, and for that particular matter, Indonesia has set a level playing field in terms of the presence in addressing these issues. And once again, congratulations from Indonesia to Faiz Hirsi. Of course, your words will be something that have to be put into account, particularly for the next upcoming COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, to address the climate change issues. And probably the aspired students out there can contact you personally to get the scoop and tips and tricks on how to win this competitions. Once again, the first winner of Laurie Dake Challenge 2024, all the way from Oslo, Norway, Faiz Hirsi. Thank you very much for the inspiring conversation.
Thank you, Rahmat.